Ay, hindi yung tama, di ba? Baka mawala ka yung USB. Hindi mo
Good afternoon, colleagues and friends. Now, after 2 days meetings, it's already a long 2 days. Now, we got the end of the program of the CSO forum. For the closing, then I would like to invite Ms. Fem Pinto, Executive Director of MPFTP, and also Mr. Chwil Lei Nguyen, the Director of Financial, and Mr. Patrick Sibor, the representative of SDC, and Mr. Lei Kong Luong from the Mr. Lei Kong Luong, Deputy Secretary General, Vietnam Union of Science and Technology Association. Please kindly have a seat in front of the room.
That our moderator is one of our partners. She is with the communications coordinator and also part of the secretariat for the ASEAN Working Group on Social Forestry.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. I think this is after the 2 days meeting. I am sure that there is a very interesting synthesis from this forum that will deliver to AWS meeting. For Ms. Kenny, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So we are. Is it working? So we are at the end of our, I would say, a successful 2 days, and we even elaborated more on this report that we will also be sharing with the whole ASEAN Working Group on Social Forestry. But there was a very rich discussion. We tried to quickly put together a synthesis. Maybe it will not be as comprehensive as we would want, but I hope that we are able to capture the main points. So in summary, we can share kind of the notable progress, some of the key highlights that have been mentioned in the last 2 days, and then focus more on the continuing challenges or new challenges within the 4 work areas that the CSO Forum is focusing on community economy and livelihoods, on governance and safeguards and forest tenure and access rights. And then within those thematic areas, we will be looking at both challenges, opportunities, and recommendations. So overall, we would like to say that in the last 2 days, we were able to share overall progress. Progress has been made in the last 7 years. Progress in the sense of having groundbreaking laws coming out in the last few years. A few of those were, it was mentioned on biodiversity, on forests, the new forest law of Vietnam on shifting cultivation, recognition of ICCAs. Overall, why it's groundbreaking? Because we also see a lot of provisions that strengthens the recognition of the rights of indigenous people and local people, and giving them more rights over forest and natural resources. So some examples where the groundbreaking recognition in Indonesia of customary forest, and successively in 2 years they were able to provide these. The recognition of spirit forest as special use forest in Vietnam, and communities being dubbed as forest owners. There's also efforts to harmonize bills where there has been a observation that some of these laws are conflicting with each other. It still remains to be a work in progress. It's still an effort that still has to continue, but at least work is already ongoing, an attempt is already ongoing to harmonize some of these laws. Overall, we see that there are a lot of areas where it's working. Cooperation between government, CSOs, and community. There's a lot of productivity behind this collaboration. So I think that's one of the main messages that we want to share here. Across all 4 themes, there's been a lot of progress made. And another area of progress is on, there's like 4 runners. There are 4 runners in ASEAN, at least for the 8 countries that we covered. 4 runners in the sense of establishing new laws in the area of safeguards and FPIC. We had heard also what's been going on in Vietnam as far as building the safeguards policy and the system, and also incorporating FPIC here. And of course in the Philippines there's already a law that really provides for the space for FPIC to be realized. There's also functioning multi-stakeholder working groups and committees, both really addressing community forestry or social forestry as a policy and as a program, but there are also related committees and working groups that link to social forestry and allows it to be operationalized, like in RED Plus, PFES, reforestation programs, and etc. And there are also, we heard innovative strategies and platforms, or we can even say it's probably also becoming a movement in relation to bringing to the fore community products, community knowledge, but in kind of framing them as festivals and gathering of communities, and bringing culture also into these platforms. So that's Parara in Indonesia. Now, moving forward, I think we want to also share what we had heard that are still continuing challenges, but then we also will offer some opportunities and recommendations that also came out of our discussions and the report. So challenges, ongoing challenges for community economy and livelihood, that community forestry enterprises may still be considered as still operating in isolation and will need still continuing support. It's still, in many areas, it's still not being fully recognized in the plans. We're still pushing for it to be recognized in priorities, for example, for economic development. They're still lacking in synergy of the forestry sector in the AEC, the ASEAN Economic Community, and we'll continue to work on it. Standards need to be developed, provisions for alternative certification, and permitting process for trade of, for example, non-timber forest products remains still as a disincentive because there's still bureaucracy, there's fees to be paid, and that's still something that we need to continue to lobby for to improve. And challenges for to develop equitable partnership between small, medium enterprises in forestry or community forestry enterprises, and also how they could link with larger enterprises. So I would go to the recommendations. Basically, this was summed up in 3 areas. The first one is on ASEAN and national policy and program development. Here we would like to encourage, based also on the efforts on the ground, encourage this area to be worked on, particularly in creating an enabling environment for community forestry enterprises. Some examples is to establish one-stop processing center for CFEs, registration and support, sharing technical expertise on MPFPs across ASEAN, support for the protection of intellectual property rights for community products, and acceptance of alternative certification models. Another area to work on would be on capacity building and promotions. To provide this with some support and some resources. And some of the areas for capacity building will be around assisting in meeting standards, value addition, capacity development for enterprise building, and regional and national marketing and branding. The last area of recommendation would be on building connectivity and continuity, particularly in facilitating equitable partnerships between community forestry enterprises and larger enterprises. And this is an ongoing, I think this is not the first time that this recommendation has been given to look into building an ASEAN trust fund, but in particular having CFEs accessing this trust fund and exploring diverse national funding mechanisms to support community enterprises. For governance mechanisms, continuing challenge would be in sustaining social forestry without external funding, and basically to encourage that national budgets do include social forestry as a priority. While we are encouraged by the presence and the establishment of multi-stakeholder working groups, there's still a need to build capacity or provide capacity building support to fully operationalize these multi-stakeholder governance mechanisms. An area of challenge is also in addressing conflicts. We recognize that while these working groups are operating already, their agenda or their work might be more focused on accelerating social forestry, the granting of social forestry awards, but maybe not so much yet touching on issues of conflict within community forestry or with other community forestry, or even addressing transboundary issues. Shifts in leadership might also affect the continuity and the progress made, especially if the previous leaders were the ones who paved the way for some of these developments, and if they are moved to a different position, then that might also challenge the social forestry. The opportunities and recommendations would be to operationalize, with resources of multi-stakeholder social forestry groups and look at expanding their roles as capacities are built. There are existing streams of similar initiatives, projects, and programs that could also focus on strengthening these governance mechanisms. Several times, the initiatives on Red Plus, LEGTI, and others have been shared that they could also be initiatives that could be tapped for the capacity building of governance mechanisms. Increased efficiency in the warding of social forestry areas, continue to push for policy changes and the harmonization of laws that might be causing some of the confusion and also slow down of implementation. Continuing on for recommendations is to have, in some areas we had seen that there are national multi-stakeholder working groups, but not translating also to good linkages in governance at the provincial level or district level. So there's a recommendation to look into that so that these multi-stakeholder mechanisms do also go down, and there's some good information flow and coordination between them. One last recommendation that was made which is also to address some of the challenges, is to look into the establishment of a regional monitoring system, monitoring and reporting system of how social forestry is going on, or governance, forest governance in general, how it is going on, and provide some space for cross-learning across ASEAN and among multi-stakeholder working groups. Safeguards. There are still varying interpretations and understanding of FPIC, and this is one of the fundamental things to work on. We have started the process of leveling off on FPIC at the civil society level, and it still needs to happen. But further than that, to have this leveling off as well among the government and between government and civil society and communities. There is still a lack of clear guidance on the implementation and practice of FPIC, limitations in reporting system, grievance mechanisms. This also ties into the challenges that were cited in governance. And then also lack of capacity of local communities in communication and negotiation. Within the process of implementing FPIC itself, there's a lot of challenges that were cited also within that. So an opportunity was linking to the previous work area is, again, as I said, the multi-stakeholder working groups might be also a platform or a mechanism wherein FPIC could be explored, meaning a monitoring function could also be taken on by the multi-stakeholder working groups, particularly in addressing and resolving grievances and conflicts, where the lack of FPIC or the weakness of an FPIC process might also be one of the reasons for conflict and grievance. Recommendation is to establish regional, national, subnational policies on FPIC. This is also after the basic step or basic process that we concluded still has to happen, which is the leveling off on the understanding of what FPIC is. Creation of a legal defense fund at the national and regional level. This is in response to the situation where there are also cases where the people that are protecting the forest themselves face also some challenges or insecurity. Physical security is challenged or threatened, and therefore there has to be a mechanism within ASEAN to protect them. And related to that, an efficient grievance mechanism system. Forest tenure and access rights, the last one. There are still some challenges, but we were encouraged by the policy developments, particularly in Malaysia and Vietnam, related to tenure or stronger tenure provisions in the new laws. But the challenge are that there's still some rapid development, maybe maldevelopment in community and indigenous forests. There's still some tedious process in securing titles, overlapping management of land, and no systematic assessment of customary tenure. Opportunities, we need to take advantage of new policies at the national level, but also international policies and agreements that could also pave the way for looking at the rights of indigenous peoples, rights over customary forest, particularly, say for example, the recognition of ICCAs, indigenous and local community conserved areas under the Convention on Biodiversity. Groundbreaking here, we saw groundbreaking progress in national policies and expanding discussion spaces for the recognition of tenure. And there are also platforms and consortium and learning networks that do focus on tenure as a topic, and we can, such as the CSO forum, which we can continue to support and continue to use. So for recommendations, capacity building for local communities. This was shared also by Malaysia, so that we can continue to, communities can continue to be a vital contributor or an effective contributor to policy improvements and linkaging with other sectors such as the government, non-state actors like academia and private sector. So this is basically the summary that we all have made some progress. We are very much encouraged by it. We are very much encouraged by the collaboration, but still the simple three phrases is we should still do more, discuss more, and work together more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It seems that the CSO works in the 4 areas, which is community, economy, and livelihood, forest tenure and access rights, governance, mechanism, and safeguards that are really in line with the plan of action for ASEAN looking on social policy 2016 to 2020. Thank you. Now I would like to the CSO Forum is part of the Rajin Group for the ASEAN Partnership on Social Forestry and Climate Change. There are some partners that are also here since yesterday. So for the closing, I would like to invite the for SRCC partners to give 1 or 2 minutes points from this event. So I would like to first invite Dr. Moira Mulyono from CIPO. Observation, comments, suggestions.
Thank you. I think first I want to congratulate NTFP on another competition of CSO Forum. I think in the years that have been passing, the CSO Forum has become sort of an institution of our annual meeting, and everybody is looking forward to it. And it's also sort of a function of bridging CSOs, local communities, and the government. So, but the question then remains the way forward, as was asked earlier. And I flippantly said, keep on talking, but we really should maybe seriously think about what to do when the project ends. Because we do not really want, like many forums, many fora, what the stakeholders are not, that disappear once the project is 10 years. And so we should really think about it. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite the representative from PICOF, Mr. Ronald Cohn.
Well, I think I'd like to reiterate the congratulations to the TAP team to make this CSO forum become very successful. So I think I have observed a lot of evolution and dynamic within the CSO forum every year, and we have observed a number of progress. When we started the CSO forum first year, we talked a lot about issues, talking about human rights, talking about the opportunities for the CSO to engage in the sustainable forest management. And this year we get more opportunity to discuss with the ASEAN member state representative from the government to share not only the CSO or the civil society to share, especially this today, we can see the government representative to share what are the progress. So I like to say this is a very great success. But then the issues that Moira raised is that how can we maintain and continue the dynamic and momentum among the CSO representatives to work together with the government. Well, one thing is that we have to recognize the existing mechanisms like I mentioned earlier, talking about the FLECT, talking about RED+, talking about several working groups that are already being recognized by the government among the state members. So how can we ensure that the representative from the CSO can make use of those existing mechanisms and not creating new one. Because the government also want to work with you, want to work with us, but probably we have to go to the certain channels to voice ourselves. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much, NTFPET team, to allow Rickoff and other implementing partners to be part of the CSO forum for the social forestry in ASEAN.
I now invite Dr. Desi Burgos from Siaka.
This is the first time that CERCA has participated in the CSO forum, and from our group, we would like to express our appreciation for inviting us, and also congratulations to the organizers, Pan Nature and the FPEP. And CERCA, as the implementing partner of the ASFCC, which manages the ASEAN Working Group on Social Forestry Strategic Response Fund, or the flexible funding mechanism of the AWGSF, will continue to support the priority areas identified during the CSO forum, as we have done before, within the means of the guidelines of the ASRF project, as well as our own institution, CERCA, and within the framework of the strategic plan of action of the AWGSF. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Desi. And for me, personally, on behalf of AWGSF Secretariat, I also would like to congratulate NTFPEP and Pan Nature for the successful event. And CSO Forum has become part of the collaborative partner with AWGSF. And thus far, there's a platform to channel between member states and the CSO. So this is a major achievement for this congratulations. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Patrick Sigor from SBC to deliver the remarks.
Thank you very much. Honorable Phu Hung Nguyen, Director of Science, Technology and International Cooperation, Vietnam Forest, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, MART. Honorable Dr. Lee Kong Loong, also from VN Forest, MART. Honorable ASEAN Member State Delegates, Mr. Trinh Nhi Nguyen, Director of Pan Nature, Ms. Benny Pinto, Non-Timber Forest Product Extension Program Director, Honorable FSC partners, dear delegates from civil society organizations, indigenous peoples organizations and local communities, dear colleagues and friends. It is an honor for me to be able to speak and to provide a few remarks on behalf of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, SDC, at the 7th annual meeting of the Civil Society Organization Forum on Social Forestry in ASEAN, hosted here in the beautiful city of Da Nang in central Vietnam. My name is Patrick and I'm Program Officer responsible for the ASEAN Swiss Partnership on Social Forestry and Climate Change at SDC's head office in Bern, Switzerland. Community forestry plays an important role in the management of forests in the Asia-Pacific region, where forests have been historically mostly owned and managed by governments. Today, communities legally possess more than a third of the region's forests under diverse types of tenure arrangements. In addition, local people individually and collectively manage forests under various forms of customary arrangement. That is indeed a significant achievement, and the effort of each and everyone here in the room that has contributed to make this possible.
No more.
But let me focus more specifically on the actual Civil Society Organization Forum on Social Forestry in ASEAN, or in short, the CSO Forum. That brings us all together here today. ASTIS is very pleased to see how the CSO Forum has evolved over the past 7 years and has become a regional platform for knowledge sharing. From an exchange of a handful of dedicated civil society organization representatives that interacted with ASEAN member state representatives, I was told in a brown bag discussion, to what we see here today and what most of you were able to experience over the past 2 days here in Da Nang. A full-fledged 2-day forum of more than 60 organizations from 8 ASEAN countries that are driven by a common goal of mainstreaming people-centered actions in thematic areas of social forestry and climate change mitigation and adaptation. The fora represents a unique opportunity for joint learning and for bringing emerging topics to the attention of ASEAN member state representatives. Let me make a special point about the role of the Non-Timber Forest Products Extension Program, NTFP-EP, in all of this here. NTFP-EP has been instrumental for making the Civil Society Forum what it is today. An effort that has also been observed by others, and that might bring about new opportunities for future engagements at regional or even global levels in the future. I think we have just touched this point in the intervention that was given before. Now, what might be the ingredients for the success that have made the forum what it is today? Having a look at it from the distance, and that's about 12,000 kilometers in my specific case, I would say it is the mix of a clear vision, a high level of professionalism, persistence, and let me particularly stress that last one, good vibes and fun, that have always characterized the annual CSO Forum meetings. At least, this is my memory looking back at the CSO Forum meetings in Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, and in Inle Lake, Myanmar, where I had the chance to attend. Having glanced through the electronic copy of the 2018 CSO Forum report that provides an overview of the social forestry and climate change action from the civil society perspective in Southeast Asia, which I got just a few days ago, I have to say that both the vision and the professionalism seem to have reached even higher levels by now. And having a look around and getting a feeling of the atmosphere, I will be surprised to hear that the forum has not lived up to the expectations in terms of the fun component in this year's forum. SCC and its global program Climate Change and Environment is pleased to have been partner and keen supporter of the CSO Forum on Social Forestry in ASEAN. Our support took place in the frame of our regional collaboration with the ASEAN under the ASEAN-Swiss Partnership on Social Forestry and Climate Change. Fostering mechanisms that make it possible that the voice of civil society organizations can be brought to the attention of policymakers is an issue that SCC is supporting here in the ASEAN region, but also does so in other parts of the world. Our role as Development Cooperation Agency is standing ready to support at an early stage when mechanisms are being set up and tested. Our engagement is always framed by the fact that we pull out once the proof of concept is done, letting the local structures take full ownership and fully integrating what has been co-developed. For us, that forms part of our sustainability concept. The civil society perspective on social forestry and climate change action in Southeast Asia will remain key for further shaping social forestry in ASEAN also in the future. And personally, I'm convinced that without making further use of the rich experiences, innovations, and lessons learned by civil society organizations, indigenous peoples, and local communities, the aim of reaching the ambitious Agenda 2030 targets will not be possible. Let's have a look at the aim of the Civil Society Forum as it is now captured in the latest publication, and I will read it out here once more. Indigenous people and forest-dependent local communities in ASEAN We secured equal rights and well-being through an institutionalized CSO platform working towards recognition and promotion of indigenous knowledge and wisdom, forest tenure and access rights, community economy and livelihoods, safeguards and inclusive governance mechanism. Looking at this vision in today's challenging environmental, economic and social context and in the framework of the broader Agenda 2030, it is as important today as it was at the moment the seedling for this instrument was planted. With the before mentioned brown bag exchange during the ASEAN Social Forestry Network Conference in Brunei back in 2011. We wish you all the success for your dedicated daily work towards this vision and lots of satisfaction and fun in this important task. Let me close with a few words of thanks. A big thank you to the hosts of the 7th annual meeting of the CSO Forum on Social Forestry in ASEAN, all the supporters, the organizers and the facilitators, and all of you that are participating here. Some of you whom have traveled large distances to be here today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pachachiba. That brings our memory back in 2011 in Brunei and also mentioning for the future of this forum. And now I would like to invite Mr. Lee Chong Long to deliver the closing remarks. The floor is yours.
Kính thưa các vị khách quý, kính thưa các đại biểu về dự hội nghị trong 2 ngày hôm nay. Đây là lần đầu tiên tôi tham dự diễn đàn các tổ chức xã hội về lâm nghiệp xã hội của các nước trong khối ASEAN. Và chúng tôi thấy rằng những người tổ chức ra cái diễn đàn này rất đáng biểu dương. Và đây là một cái hoạt động rất là thiết thực. Và đặc biệt tôi cũng đã tham dự nhiều hội nghị, nhưng tôi chưa thấy một hội nghị nào mà chúng ta làm việc một cách say sưa, nghiêm túc và đến giờ phút này vẫn đang còn đông đủ như thế này. Và tôi cũng rất đồng tình với các ý kiến phát biểu trước là hội thảo đến giờ phút này đã thành công tốt đẹp. Sau 2 ngày chúng ta đã nghe rất nhiều báo cáo, nghe rất nhiều các cái phát biểu chia sẻ kinh nghiệm về các hoạt động của các tổ chức xã hội trong lĩnh vực là lâm nghiệp xã hội. Và chúng tôi nghĩ rằng lâm nghiệp xã hội là một trong những hoạt động để hỗ trợ cho lâm nghiệp nhà nước, lâm nghiệp chính phủ. Và chúng tôi thấy các cái tổ chức xã hội có một vai trò rất lớn trong việc thúc đẩy lâm nghiệp xã hội phát triển. Và cụ thể như ở Việt Nam thì chúng tôi thấy rằng là các cái tổ chức xã hội hoạt động trong lĩnh vực là lâm nghiệp đã có những cái hỗ trợ, những là cái tác động tích cực đến cái quá trình hoạch định chính sách của chính phủ, đến cái quá trình triển khai thực hiện các cái chính sách về là lâm nghiệp. Và đặc biệt họ là những người tiên phong trong việc là bảo vệ rừng, bảo vệ môi trường, thích ứng với biến đổi khí hậu, và là những người tiên phong trong việc bảo vệ quyền lợi của cộng đồng, của các cái dân tộc thiểu số. Và điều này thể hiện rất rõ trong cái quá trình họ tham gia vào cái việc tư vấn phản biện luật lâm nghiệp 2017 và các cái nghị định, các cái thông tư về triển khai thực thi là luật lâm nghiệp vào mùng 1 tháng 1 năm 2019. Và chúng tôi cũng thấy rằng qua cái diễn đàn này thì các đại biểu có thể rút ra được nhiều cái bài học, nhiều cái kinh nghiệm quý báu từ các cái tổ chức, các cái quốc gia mà các bạn đã mang đến đây. Và những cái kinh nghiệm của nước này cũng có thể được áp dụng ở những nước khác để góp phần thúc đẩy lâm nghiệp xã hội phát triển, góp phần bảo vệ và phát triển rừng theo những cái tiêu chí mà hội nghị chúng ta đã đề ra. Và tôi cũng hy vọng rằng là ban thư ký của diễn đàn lần này sẽ truyền tải những thông điệp đến cho cái hội nghị về là bàn về cái là vai trò của các ngành lâm nghiệp vì một cái ASEAN thịnh vượng và là thích nghi, sẽ là tổ chức hội nghị vào ngày 26 tại thành phố này. Và chúng tôi muốn rằng là chính phủ các nước phải nghe được tiếng nói của các cái tổ chức xã hội để từ đó tạo điều kiện thuận lợi cho lâm nghiệp xã hội phát triển. Mà đây chính là một cái hoạt động xã hội hóa lâm nghiệp, xã hội hóa cái việc là trồng rừng, bảo vệ rừng, phát triển rừng, đưa kinh tế rừng trở thành một cái là kinh tế mũi nhọn của các nước, vì con người, vì cái sự là tồn tại của trái đất, và để thích ứng tốt hơn, thích nghi tốt hơn trong điều kiện biến đổi khí hậu hiện nay. Một lần nữa, tôi nghĩ rằng một ý kiến phát biểu của là một đại biểu là về nói rằng là cái sự tồn tại của diễn đàn sau khi dự án kết thúc, đây cũng chỉ là một điều chúng tôi băn khoăn. Chúng tôi băn khoăn vậy chúng ta làm thế nào? Một mặt chúng ta tìm kiếm các nhà tài trợ, mặt khác chúng ta cũng phải có cái tiếng nói để các chính phủ của khối ASEAN phải hỗ trợ cho những cái diễn đàn này là bằng một cái hình thức nào đó, chứ không thể là chúng ta là dựa mãi vào cái sự tài trợ. Tôi nghĩ rằng cái này cũng có một phần trách nhiệm của nhà nước để thúc đẩy cái lâm nghiệp xã hội ngày càng phát triển. Và tôi cũng xin kiến nghị với ban tổ chức rằng ngoài là cái sự nhiệt tình của những cái tổ chức NTFP và Fundraiser thì chúng ta cũng nên có mỗi lần nước nên có một cái ban thư ký để là thường trực cho diễn đàn này, và có thể lựa chọn trong số các cái tổ chức xã hội về là hoặc có hoạt động về lâm nghiệp xã hội phải là một cái đơn vị thường trực để làm đầu mối và khâu nối để tổ chức các cái diễn đàn là trong những năm tiếp theo. Một lần nữa tôi xin cảm ơn ban tổ chức hội thảo đã bố trí một cái hội thảo hết sức là công phu, hết sức là khoa học, và các cái điều kiện ăn nghỉ, điều kiện là hậu cần cũng hết sức là tốt đẹp. Và xin cảm ơn các bạn đã đến với Việt Nam chúng tôi, và hy vọng rằng ngoài những cái là nội dung, ngoài những cái kiến thức kinh nghiệm mà các bạn học được tại diễn đàn thì các bạn sẽ có những cái ngày nghỉ thư giãn và ngắm cái cảnh đẹp của thành phố Đà Nẵng, một trong những thành phố là năng động và là đáng sống và được du khách là mến yêu của Việt Nam chúng tôi. Xin gửi đến quý vị lời chúc sức khỏe và hạnh phúc. Tôi xin kết thúc bài phát biểu tại đây. Xin cảm ơn.
Promising for the future. So now there's a little bit closing remarks from Mr. Pinto.
I asked Alfie if I can say just a few more words before Nguyen, because I think he will not say it. Because this is just a word of thanks. We really want to thank our local host, Plan Nature, who is really, I think this is one of the largest, if not the largest, CSO forum that we've organized. And this is also the first time that we tested a new format, which is to have one day among ourselves and then another one which is more public. This dialogue seminar, and I think it was really successful. And so I'd like to thank, in particular, Pan Nature for taking the call to actually help us, assist us in mounting this two-day CSO forum. So but this is also, we wouldn't be able to get here if it had not been also through the help of the other CSOs over the past years. So we've learned a lot also in mounting the CSO forum, and so I also would like to re-recognize some of the previous hosts of the CSO forum and where those forums that have been held that had a milestone in the CSO Forum Live. So the very first one that was hosted by NTFP Cambodia. So in Cambodia and for the year that Laos was the head, was the leader of the ASEAN forestry meeting. So I'd like to thank NTFP Cambodia, and then for the CSO Forum in Sabah, which was quite a milestone. So for Joas and Pacos, who are still here after how many years, still very much active. So thank you very much, and that CSO Forum was very well also supported by Mr. Ricky's office, and now he's heading up SASO. And then the next one was in Myanmar, and again another milestone of the CSO Forum in Inlet. So I'd like to recognize Point again for helping us also to reach a milestone at that time. In the Philippines, that was actually the time we set our vision. We defined our vision and also our targets. So I'd like to thank NTFP Philippines and also IDS, who also were our hosts in Palawan. And lastly, last year we also had a very great CSO Forum in Chiang Mai, and AIPP, Asian Indigenous Peoples Pact, was also our host. So I think we really deserve also to hear about our own efforts, and as Dr. Loon had mentioned, there's a lot of passion and energy and tireless. We worked until 7 o'clock last night, but we also had a lot of fun after that. So this is a group with a lot of passion and also can have fun after all the hard work. And lastly, I also would like to thank, of course, also the NTFP Asia team. We have Dazo, who is our and tirelessly also sending reminders and to help us all, and also our thematic leads, co-leads, both from NTFP Asia, Chrissy Guerrero, together with our Safeguards, Van from Pan Nature, and Edna from NTFP, and Donal from WCS. Tenure and access rights, led by Jepe at NTFP Indonesia, and also Pacos Trust, and also for governance, myself and Olive from NTFP Philippines. Lastly, I just like to name our very good Pan-Nature staff. When Lin, Han, Yung, Tui, and Nguyen, can you stand up, please?
So before I say the last words to close this two-day session, I would like to deliver with Dr. Fu Hung apology for not being able to attend to the last minute because he also need to go to the EEF meeting. Near here, somewhere near here. So my job now is just thank you. Thank you to all CSO partners who attend this forum, especially international NGO who volunteer to come here and share their knowledge in the skill share session, and also attending today's meeting, and also to those who pay for themselves to come here, self-funded participants that show your commitment to the forum team. And of course, NTFP is always the one we thank. You have been very patient for the last 7-8 years. And for our local government, for our national government partner here, Vietnam Administration of Forestry, they have been helping us quite a lot, especially to reduce the pain with paperwork and permission. They are the one who help us very much with that. and which also wish our Bush partner here. They also provide us a lot of support. And to our donor, NDC, and one of our very generous and flexible donor, Hotline Foundation, who help us to match the fund to help us to continue to this forum, so that we reduce to help reduce the dependence on NTFP and other partners. And that is, I would like to thank the whole team to NTFP and Foundation, but Femi already did that. So thank you all, and I would like to say goodbye to you and see you again hoping next year also. Okay, so please, anyone who go to Hoi An tonight, enjoy. And I think one of our Vietnamese friends will have to with all the logistic arrangement. I already made an announcement. Just try to catch up with you on that, and we can stop now. Thank you.
For those who will attend the AWDS conference tomorrow, there will be a bus leaving at 7:30 from Serene Hotel going to Mongna. So we'll meet at the lobby again tomorrow morning, 7:30. So no. We meet at the lobby of Serene Hotel, 7:30, going here.
Thank you for
Yes, I try to collect a lot of trong cái email phải xuất hóa đơn. Có hóa đơn trên email để em. Để tách hóa đơn sau để tổ chức.
Nguyen is the girl.
Yeah, we shake the window.
Nguyen is the girl.
Bánh nước tóc.
Đâu nhỉ? Còn trên một cái micro.
Cái đây. Bây giờ đi ấy à?
Mic ở đâu rồi? Micro ở đâu?
Có một cái mic.
Tắt rồi à? Chị Đào sao được lấy của chị cái mic đấy? Để con
Em một xíu. Em hơi đọc rồi. Em hơi đọc rồi. Sao bây giờ đi Hội An à? Thế bao giờ về? Bao giờ về? Đây à? Đúng này.
So you have location in mind, you follow with the you have to take care of boss.
So the bus is waiting. Oh yeah. So the bus is yeah, because the meeting ends at 5:30.
Before the flight,
No, maybe Dr. Fu. Because he's charging it.
I'm trying to call him, but he's not. Đúng rồi, em gọi cho lớn để hỏi xem ở đâu để gửi cho em. Nó chắc chúng này. Hả? Không, nhưng mà đang có ở bên này nữa. Anh gọi được. Quên con sắp đâu. Dạ. Thế bọn em có thể chờ có thể ấy được, anh về tướng một tí đấy. Anh theo ông về trưởng đấy đấy. Em soạn đô một tí đấy.
MTFP and Fan Nature. MTFP. Fan Nature.
Okay.
The driver, but we have to be there 7:30. So he will be there. Okay. What's the number? Sorry, we'll just have
Okay.